Sci-Hub.
So here we have a soundbar from Roth called the Sub Zero 3, which is actually following in the footsteps of its older brother, the Roth Sub Zero 2, which was actually released to market to provide a basic sound solution to those tinny, rubbish-sounding television speakers that you find in sort of the more flatter TVs, LED and OLED setups. So generally, soundbar speaker setups are there to offer some kind of improved audio over that come with flat-screen televisions. The Roth Sub Zero 3 is no different. It's a basic setup solution that is literally this one soundbar here. There's no separate speakers and no subwoofer with this. So it's not really going to replace a 5.1 cinema surround sound system setup, but it's not really designed for that. It's designed really for people with tighter spaces and people with smaller living rooms that just want to heighten their sound experience a little bit. So just to let you know that the Roth Sub Zero 3 comes in two different colours, black and white, and I think it's pretty obvious which one we were sent to check out. Now, the overall build quality I think is actually quite nice. It actually does give off this very minimalistic feel, and I think it will be very tasteful within any kind of modern living room area. Now, I would take into consideration that most televisions on the market now do come in black, so I think that having a black TV with a black soundbar kind of gives everything that universal look and feel to it, rather than having a black TV and then this white soundbar underneath it. Now, the entire front is covered in this very, very soft kind of fabric that's been stretched out sort of all the way across over the front. Unfortunately, the back is made from sort of a very plasticky feeling material, and I think that really does let down the actual quality of build that Roth are trying to give off. Now, at the front here you can see that there is a very, very small control panel, and it has got a very, very small screen, which unfortunately is very, very hard to read if you're sitting quite a distance away from the actual soundbar. And on the front it really only reads what your volume levels are and what input you are using, whether that's the HDMI ARC or the optical or the auxiliary port that's on the back. You'll actually read it on the front when you switch through the various different sources. Now, I would have liked to have seen this control panel be a little bit bigger, and also maybe to keep it within a modern aesthetic, maybe touch sensitive controls rather than these clunky 5 buttons across the front that don't really offer any kind of quality feel to them, and they're very loud when they click, and it just gives it a little bit of a very old feeling, a very vintage feel to the actual design of the soundbar, which, if that's your thing, then absolutely great. I mean, I wasn't keen, but it doesn't look that bad. It's not a disgusting design at all. It's actually quite, as I said, tasteful, minimalistic, and would actually look nice in a living room environment. So setting the soundbar up was actually relatively easy, as a very, very basic setup only needs 2 cables. Now, the first is the power, so you can actually power the unit itself, and then you have a number of options to connect it to a television. The most popular one I think most people will probably use is an optical cable, which it has on the back of this. Now, if you run an optical cable to the back of your television, then any audio inputs that are plugged into your television, so a cable or satellite box, games consoles, Blu-ray players, any kind of streaming devices like a Roku box, any sound plugged into your television will automatically be picked up by the soundbar. So that's generally the easiest way to plug everything in. So on the back of the Sub Zero soundbar are 3 HDMI ports, and 2 of them are input ports, and the other one has ARC return. Now, what ARC return means is that if you connect the Roth soundbar to your television, but it has to go into the HDMI ARC return on your television, it means that then sound from any plugged in devices into your television will also play through the soundbar. And then it's also quite nice as well that you've got an extra 2 HDMI ports on the back of the soundbar as well, so if you run out of HDMI ports on your television, then you can still use HDMI sources, and then you just set the source on the front here to whichever HDMI channel your device is plugged into. So if your PlayStation's plugged into HDMI 2 on the back of this, for example, just change this to HDMI 2 and then the picture would appear on your television, and then the sound will come out through the soundbar, which is all a really kind of easy way to set everything up, and it's so simple, and it actually is a really nice solution. The last port on the back of this is a 3.5 auxiliary input, which you could use to plug in maybe a mobile device, and also in the box came a 3.5 auxiliary jack to the very, very old phono cable, you know, the red and white, I can't even know what the cables are called, coaxial cables maybe? But it's literally like the RCA cables that are on very, very old television technology. I don't know if anyone out there, if they're going for some kind of soundbar, will use a connection like that rather than HDMI ARC or optical, but it's nice that you do have the choice. I can see most people using that 3.5 auxiliary input for things like mobile phones, tablets, so you can play music through the actual soundbar itself. So the only other way you can connect a device to this soundbar is through Bluetooth aptX, which is absolutely fantastic. So if you are having, say, a house gathering, for example, you've got a sound solution right here in your living room. Although this isn't the loudest sound solution, it is still loud enough to sort of be heard over the ambience of a party atmosphere in your living room. So if there's one thing I do want to point out is that the ports on here are actually downward facing, which is a huge issue if you're going to be putting this on some kind of television cabinet in front of your television. When you have the soundbar like this, HDMI cables, and I found this with my HDMI cables and my optical cables, that they actually really struggle to gain any kind of connection without having to really bend the cables, which is really bad for the ports. I wouldn't recommend doing that. So the only solution, you have one in the box, is right-angled adapters. If you've already sunk money into the soundbar, you have to get adapters to use the soundbar. You might as well go for a different soundbar in the first place. That's literally my opinion. Although it's a very, very good price, which we'll go over in a minute, having downward firing cables is just a really, really bad design choice. Now, if you're having this soundbar on the wall, because you do have the universal screw hooks, like sort of keyhole hooks on the left and the right, so you can just hang it on the wall, that would be absolutely fine. You can have the downward facing cables, that's absolutely fine, because they're not going to get snagged on anything. But you put a cable in there, and then you try and stand it up on a desk, then you're just going to struggle. It's just not going to work at all, unless you use right-angled adapters. So the actual speaker setup here on this Sub Zero 3 isn't really that bad either. Now, there are 4 2.75-inch ferrite drivers that are split up into 2 subwoofers and 2 full-range drivers, as well as 2 passive radiators as well. Now, the actual sound quality that you get over, let's say, for example, the Samsung LED TV that I tested it on is absolutely tenfold. You cannot compare one of these to your television speakers, the same as you really can't compare one of these to a 5.1 cinema setup. But the sound solution that you get based on your television speakers absolutely blows television speakers out of the water. It was really, really good. Now, the actual bass frequencies from this soundbar were actually surprisingly present. It made action sequences feel quite full. So there are 3 different sound profiles on the Roth Sub Zero 3, being music, voice and movie. And I will say now that the music and the voice presets were absolutely trash. The movie preset produced some really, really muddy audio. It was really muffled and grainy, whereas the voice was just super tinny. And I know that it's to really get those voice frequencies over the top of any kind of background noise within a movie or a television show. But I was just finding that the music preset was just giving this really overall lovely sound compared to the other 2 profiles. So the nice thing about the Roth soundbar is its remote control, and it's the fact that it's actually so easy to use. And I mean, just look how many buttons on there. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 buttons. And from top to bottom, you've got power, you've got mute, you've got volume up and down, you've got your input, and then you've got your 3 sound profiles at the bottom as well. That is it. And it actually works from a really nice distance as well from the actual soundbar. So you can use it from across the living room, for example, without really having any kind of issue with connection or trying to get it to work. The worst thing about sitting really far back is the fact that you probably won't be able to see the screen anyway. So I found myself going through each input on the remote control just so I could find where my optical input was, so I can listen to audio through my television. Now, really to conclude, I want to say that I liked the Roth Sub Zero 3 very much, and I think at this price point it's very, very hard to ignore if you've just bought yourself a nice big cinema 50-inch TV for your living room, even the smaller tellies like a 32 or 42 television for your living rooms. And for the actual price point of the Roth Sub Zero 3, you cannot go wrong with the sound. If you're just wanting to upgrade those basic television speakers to something a little bit more punchy, then this is absolutely perfect to do that. Yeah, okay, it's not the best soundbar on the market, and there are certainly soundbars out there that come with separate subwoofers for those kind of bass frequency solutions, but you're not going to find them at this price. They're a lot more expensive, and if you are pushed for space as well, this is a nice solution to keep it just underneath your television and out of the way on your television stand. As long as you've got those right angle cables, then you're not really going to go wrong with the Roth Sub Zero 3 at all. So thank you very much for checking out our review of the Roth Sub Zero 3 soundbar. If you like the review, then please click that like button. Please do subscribe to keep up with all of our tech and gaming videos, and also leave a comment below letting us know what you think of the soundbar and whether you would want to go for a soundbar like this, or would you want one with a subwoofer, or would you want a 5.1 cinema surround sound kit for your movies and sort of home music. As I say, thank you very much for watching, and we will see you in the next review.